The story of Elijah and the widow of Zarephath, a story of impossible faith and miraculous provision. Listen and learn.
What would you do if you had only one meal left? Would you share it with a stranger or save it for yourself? Today's story will challenge everything you think you know about faith, trust, and provision. As recorded in 1 Kings chapter 17, God's prophet Elijah had declared this drought. This is the story of Elijah and the widow of Zarephath, a story of impossible faith and miraculous provision. A famine had gripped the land. No food, no water, only despair. And yet, in the midst of hopelessness, a lone prophet walked toward a small, dusty village. What happened next would test faith, courage, and the power of obedience like never before. 1 Kings 17 verse 10 tells us that when Elijah arrived at the town gate of Zarephath, he found a widow gathering sticks. Elijah, a wise and determined prophet of God, approached this humble widow. She looked tired, her hands trembling as she held the last of her flour and a tiny jar of oil. Her stomach growled, her child weak at her side. They had nothing left to survive another day. Yet, Elijah spoke with calm authority. As we read in verses 10 and 11, he called to her and asked for a little water to drink. And as she was going to get it, he called out again, asking her to bring him a piece of bread. The widow hesitated. Her heart broke as she spoke the devastating truth. Verse 12 records her heartbreaking response. She swore by the living God that she had no bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. She was gathering sticks to make one final meal for herself and her son, and then they would die. Tears filled her eyes. This was the end, or so she thought. Elijah looked at her with piercing eyes filled with hope. And in verses 13 and 14, he spoke words that would change her life forever. "Do not be afraid," he said. "Go and do as you have said. But first, make me a small loaf of bread and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son." Then came the promise that seemed impossible. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. The widow's heart raced. Could she really trust a stranger? Could she really trust God? Every instinct screamed survival, but deep down, a spark of faith stirred. With trembling hands, she obeyed. Verse 15 tells us she went away and did exactly as Elijah had told her. And because of her obedience, there was food every day for Elijah, for the woman, and for her family. She poured, she mixed, and she gave the last of her food to Elijah. And then the miracle happened. Verse 16 confirms that the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, exactly as the Lord had promised through Elijah. Day after day, the flour and oil never ran out. Each morning brought enough to eat, more than enough to survive. Hope returned to the small house. The widow saw that trusting God was not a gamble, it was life itself. Her son, once weak and sickly, began to grow stronger, laughing and running around their small home once more. Faith had changed everything.
When resources ran out, faith stepped in. The widow didn't give from abundance, she gave from obedience.